without further ado, welcome Steve to the hot seat. And I would like to start with asking you a bit about yourself. What's your background? How did you start doing SEO?
Yeah, so I'm Steve Toth, currently an SEO consultant and newsletter publisher at SEO Notebook. Feel free to connect with me. I started SEO in 2010, actually, and it wasn't a full-time job at the time, but I was working at a web development company that was making custom software, and I was actually part of my job was to help actually write the user manuals for the custom software. But the fun part of my job was actually writing for the blog, and essentially trying to come up with interesting things that we could write about to help promote the company. And it was through that I just began experimenting with search engine optimization. This is back in 2010, where it was quite easy to get on the first page and in a day to use the appropriate keyword density and just rank highly. But I'm thankful that I got in at that time because the rewards were very immediate, and it was quite motivating for me to keep on that path. And then I did that job for a year. I just couldn't handle writing user manuals any longer, and then I got a job at an agency actually in social media, but very quickly realized that SEO was what I wanted to do, and quickly transitioned into basically different tracks within SEO. Started in local, and then organic, and then eventually became the director of the department, and jumped to another agency. This is in 2017, and then I ended up getting the best job of my life at FreshBooks.com in 2018, where I had just an amazing learning experience working there for 2 years, and then became an SEO consultant right before COVID. I actually took FreshBooks on as one of my first clients, and since then I've been doing the SEO consulting thing, and now we work with major B2B brands, SaaS companies, and beyond, and are having a great time growing the agency and working with an excellent team.
Sounds awesome. We actually discussed this a bit before this even started, and you said that you are in the process of rebranding the company, if I understand this correctly.
Yeah, so it's pretty unofficial right now. There's no website for it just yet, but we're just working on the actual branding, and it'll be called a Notebook Agency. So we'll just go by Notebook, and the domain will be notebook.agency. But if you go there right now, there's not going to be anything there.
You mentioned FreshBooks, right? One of your first clients. And my understanding is that you made some pretty major achievements with them. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah, it was like just such an incredible learning opportunity, and having a website like that to work on was, I think, every SEO manager's dream. And the major initiative that drove the most revenue was actually around ranking for invoice templates. So invoice template on its own is a $300,000 search volume keyword at about, at the time, maybe a $10, $8 CPC around there. And just because of the sheer volume of that keyword and the hundreds of long tail keywords that we have around invoice template, so things like invoice template for contractors, for lawyers, PDF invoice template, Word invoice template, there's hundreds of variety of keywords like that, and we created 120 pages to target all of those keywords. With those, we ranked number one within about 7 to 9 months of that campaign. And it was around that time of ranking number one for invoice template that, my confidence really started to increase as an SEO, because, we were doing amazing. And it was around that time where I decided to launch SEO Notebook, kind of on the heels of that increased confidence. I'd always been super passionate about SEO, but I'd never had a case study like that, right? So it kind of was a really great timing for me to do so. And, that's what I did. And then one of the other initiatives we undertook at FreshBooks was our resource hub. So if you go to freshbooks.com/hub, you can check that out. And the challenge there was that my boss came up to me and he said, "Hey, Steve, I want 1,000 articles," and then he just walked away. And that was the way he addressed that to me. And I thought, how am I going to create 1,000 articles? Like, that's crazy. We're literally a 2-person SEO team at that point. And I just had this light bulb moment about scraping. The people also ask questions on Google around things like invoicing, accounting, entrepreneurship, taxes, and we scraped about 5,000 different PAA keywords, and we clustered them without the use of any keyword clustering tools because they didn't exist yet. We did everything in Excel, and we ended up with 650 articles, not 1,000. But those 650 articles, when we launched them in spring 2019, a year later, they were earning 50,000 clicks per day across all those articles.
That's amazing. And like, especially the part that you said about, doing everything in Excel, because those tools that we use for search engine optimizations today didn't exist back then. And it was before like AI and ChatGPT, so you couldn't just like mass generate this content. That's
No.
really cool. And I actually have a follow-up question to that because I'm wondering, how did the SEO landscape change in these years? So, like 10 years ago, obviously, that there wasn't that many tools that you could use. So you had to do a lot of more like manual work, I guess, a lot of guesswork. But maybe the competition was not as fierce as today. How do you feel
Yeah,
about
I think there's a lot of different things that changed around that time. And actually, I was listening to a really great podcast called offline, better offline. It's called, and they were talking about how Google really decreased its quality 2019 and beyond. And I think about my own, how closely I was monitoring single SERPs working at an in-house company and how much they changed. Um, it was harder to get clicks because there are so many different features, right? So we borrowed from the people also ask, but in some cases, the people also ask widget is outranking our organic results. So it makes it harder to get the clicks that you used to be able to get. And what they say in that podcast was that essentially Google tried to maximize the number of searches people had to do to find what they want in order to trigger more ads and click on those ads to generate more revenue. And that led to a decrease in search results and a lot of frustration amongst users and a lot of frustration amongst SEOs because it was, we're suddenly like competing against search features that we really can't outrank. And it's totally up to Google whether they want to do those things. So when I was, monitoring that invoice template SERP for every day, day in and day out, I was watching it change with my own eyes. There was like, it's like, every other day Google is testing a big feature. Like sometimes there's 15 images showing, sometimes there's 5, sometimes there's a PA at the top, and just this constant sort of testing that Google's doing. It made it hard to kind of predict, but when we finally nailed down that number one position, we held it for just under 2 years before I left, which was pretty amazing.
That's awesome. Uh, does that mean that as being an SEO, you have to learn how to game the system, so to say?
I think that gaming to a degree is part of it. Like, so for example, we had our review stars there as long as we could, right? Now you can't really do the star reviews as easily as you used to be able to do. But if we could exploit that, or exploit the FAQ. I'm drawing a blank as to the FAQ schema results, and try to make your listing bigger as long as you can. There are certain things that you should take advantage of while you can. But I think in terms of like gaming, I wouldn't really ever use that terminology with the sites the type of SEO that I do, because I want to think about more like long-term strategies as well, right? So if you're in a churn and burn type website, or if you're in looking at the Conch House case study, if you Google that on YouTube, those are definitely areas where you want to be able to like game and exploit for short-term benefit as much as you can. But if you're working like with actual companies, I wouldn't really call it that.
Can you send that name to the chat?
Sure. Yeah, if you where is the chat? That's cute.
It's on the right side. It should be on the right side. Sorry, yeah, I forgot to to explain to you how the chat works. Never mind. We can always send it to register.
Yeah, if you it's on Matt Diggity's YouTube channel, and it's called Conch House. So CONCH House, and then Matt Diggity on YouTube. You should be able to get that. It's actually a fascinating case study, and I ended up hiring actually the person who, one of the two people who was behind that case study. I'll quickly tell you what it is. I know this is not part of the thing, but they essentially looked at all the no follow links pointing to Amazon, and then they scraped, and they assumed that those would be affiliates, and then they scraped all of that content, like hundreds of thousands of pages of no follow links pointing to Amazon, and they put those on an expired domain. And like usually when you launch an expired domain, there's like a small bump that you get at the beginning. But I guess their theory was like, well, what if you put like 200, 300,000 pages all with affiliate links and the rest of it on an expired domain? How would that bump look? And that bump went to 3 million visits, and they ended up making $800,000 in 2 months.
That's actually, I don't know if it's evil or a genius.
Well, I mean, it is what it is. It was an opportunity that they decided to exploit. I don't know how many people they really hurt in the process. I wouldn't really say they did, but that was what they decided to do. And one of the gentlemen behind that website is now working full time, just because I love his mindset and his problem solving abilities and all that kind of stuff.
It's amazing. Let's circle back a little bit to the SEO Notebook. This is your newsletter where you share practical strategies. We have actually talked about this, and this is not like a standard. How do you say it?
Newsletter, yeah, it's not the.
Yeah, exactly. These are like actionable strategies that you can try in your SEO game. Why did you start this newsletter? What was the like? You mentioned that you started it around your success at FreshBooks,
Right.
but what was your reasoning for starting?
Yeah, this is the kind of thing that I would love to say that SEO Notebook was like a master plan of like how to leave your job and start a successful SEO consultancy, but it wasn't that. It was very much born out of necessity. So I am obviously very passionate about SEO, but I'm not the most organized person, right? So if you look in my Google Drive, the folders are not a great structure, or like, my email usually has like hundreds of unread emails, and like I'm not the most organized person. And the thing is, I was coming up with all these interesting strategies, or learning about interesting strategies while at FreshBooks, and ranking invoice template. And I said to myself, like, I need a place to like put all these strategies. So that was the first step. And I thought to myself, well, if I get Evernote at the time, that was my choice of software. If I get Evernote, I can, each page can essentially detail one strategy, and then when I want to go look that up at a later date, I can have all the information there. And that was the initial, just doing it for myself. And then it didn't take me long, but the next day I thought to myself, if I started an email newsletter where I take one page of this notebook and just email it out, that would be kind of cool. And then I thought of the name SEO Notebook. I went over to that same boss and friend at FreshBooks, and I told him my idea. And then I just went and bought the domain right there on the FreshBooks computer. And then I launched it about a month later.
It's really cool. And there was one thing that really stuck with me that you said in our private conversation, that you believe in sharing our ideas freely or sharing your knowledge freely. Can you tell me about this like mindset that you have?
Yeah, so it actually just stems from me like being super excited to talk about what I'm doing and share that with other people and almost get like a rush or a high from sharing, something I'm passionate about. Like that's just a natural, like, gives me a kick. And I have other friends who are the same way. And and I thought, this notebook idea is a great idea to kind of help me do that. And then as I was sort of doing this on LinkedIn as well and sharing, a lot of what I was learning, what I was researching, what I was developing on LinkedIn, somebody commented in the comments, they said, this sounds a lot like The Go Giver. And that's the name of the book that really solidified my whole approach to, inbound marketing. And in the book, they do talk about giving away all of your knowledge for free. Also talk about making sure that what you give in value is more than what you take in payment. And then they talk about scaling the way that you give. So giving away to many people versus just a small amount of people. And then letting those same people who you give to, letting them know how they could help you, right? So if you want to help me, you can subscribe to SEO Notebook, connect with me on LinkedIn, engage with me on social media, and even hire me. So you have to let your audience kind of know how to help you, and then you just have to be open to receiving their help. So those are sort of the main lessons that I took from the book. And that's the philosophy that I have continued to adopt. And even in times where things, can be uncertain, like a month after COVID, I had multiple clients reduce their budget or whatever. I knew as long as I was still doing and practicing what they teach in this book, The Go Giver, that I'll be okay. And I've pretty much, been growing ever since.
And this approach sounds, this doesn't seem like something that's only applicable to SEO. So
No.
this is more like a mindset that you can have, and I can see this like paying off big time for other people as well when they like share their knowledge freely and they give more than they ask for. It can really like help you out in the long term. So it's really cool. Um, can you share one of your favorite strategies from the SEO notebook? One of your like highlights.
I'll share a recent one that I really liked. And it has to do with looking at like the Google search bar and trying to get topics from the auto suggest, but it's a different spin on what most people do with auto suggest. So essentially it starts with Googling a keyword to just kind of seed Google with a topic. So the example that I use in my note is the keyword best mortgage rates. And when you search that keyword, you, in the same session, you delete best mortgage rates, and then you start typing in words called interrogative words. So these are words that begin questions. So after delete best mortgage rates in that same session, I'll type in things like what is, how does, when, can, things like that. And what Google starts to do is it remembers that you were just searching best mortgage rates, and it starts to give you related questions to, when is the best time to buy a mortgage. One of my favorites was when does the Fed meet again? The Fed is the Federal Reserve that determines the interest rates, which obviously affect mortgages, right? So essentially what you end up getting are these great topics out of this. And we actually coded this in a Google Colab notebook, which I'll share with you, Mate, and you can also share this with your audience after the call. And we've automated this strategy. So just one caveat to it is, just because you get an amazing topic like when does the Fed meet again in relation to best mortgage rates, doesn't mean that you should necessarily create an article that's just about when does the Fed meet again. You might want to look at all the sort of info that you collect and then piece that together in multiple articles or one comprehensive article. That's kind of where the art comes in, but the script can help you do the collection of those topics.
It's really ingenious. So yeah, if it wasn't apparent by now, we are highly recommending you signing up for the SEO Notebook, and this is free. So we'll definitely visit the website once this session is over. But now we have already talked a lot about your background. We have talked about the SEO Notebook. You have shared one of your favorite strategies with us, but if we go with like a more holistic approach, what do you think SEO is? What are some of the largest misconceptions that people have about SEO?
That's a really deep question. Misconceptions hard for me to really understand because I'm so involved in like the mechanics behind what people search that and I'd love to say that search is getting better, but I actually think that it's getting worse in terms of the quality that Google is putting out there. So you know what I can answer this is that the misconception that I think that SGE will obliterate SEO, or that generative AI will obliterate SEO. I think that it's important to remember, first of all, that SEO is just search engine optimization, and there's many different search engines. So whatever happens is we'll adapt. But I think that there's still a very good lifespan for certain industries within SEO. And one of them is the industry that I tend to operate in, which is B2B SaaS. So if you're a B2B SaaS company, like one of my clients that does indoor maps, for example, if I'm wanting to research and do an indoor map for my shopping mall, do I have like necessarily people that I can just say, hey, what's the best indoor maps? If I ask, my friend or my mom or my girlfriend about that, like they're not going to know anything about what's the best indoor maps company, right? So these like niche B2B softwares and stuff like that, I think that they will have a longer lifespan than a lot of things, maybe than like affiliate SEO type plays. So I think that, doom and gloom regarding SEO, regarding Google, it is also important to remember that it's been happening for, 25 years. People saying it's dead. When Facebook and Twitter started to jump on the scene, people said it's absolutely dead. People are not going to use it. They're just going to use social media. And obviously that never happened. So there's been, featured snippets would be another one, thinking that people are only going to read their information from the search results, that there's not going to be any more clicks ever again. There's been a lot of, doomsday scenarios for SEO. And I think if history tells us anything, is that they seem like they could be feasible or plausible, but human behavior often gets in the way of that.
So SEO is not dead just yet.
I think that there's too many. Google also controls Android phones, so that's like a good number of phones. They're going to be promoting you to use Google search as much as possible through Android and through Chrome and all that kind of stuff.
Can you tell us a bit about SGE? I think I actually just familiarize myself with this term. It apparently means search.
Generative experience.
Yeah,
Yeah.
generative experience. And it's apparently like a new way for Google to introduce like these personalized AI generated search results, if I understand this correctly. But my understanding on this topic is very limited. So can you tell us about that?
Yeah. So Google launched this in response to Bing AI search. And I think that Google is going to be reluctant to um, launch SGE, although there was investor call today that said that, that kind of pointed in the direction of, that they might do that. But I think that they're only really going to do this in reaction to other things, and also based on their own data that they have too. So, uh, essentially, they've launched it in labs, which means that it's only for users who have signed up to use it. They're obviously monitoring the behavior of those users and those searches quite extensively. But the interesting thing is that they're going to have to balance, the SGE results with actually sending, qualified traffic to websites. Because if they just stop doing that, then there's going to be a problem, in the years to come with results that are not going to be as fresh and as relevant, because the publishers have no incentive to actually create content if they're not getting any traffic or generating any revenue. So it's a kind of a interesting thing to watch and see how it evolves. But that same client that I mentioned about indoor maps, we have a great case study where we're literally like everywhere on the SGE for that client. And I think the key to getting into the search generative results and ranking within them is very similar to just doing regular SEO, and copying, sorry, um, uh, covering your content comprehensively, which is what I meant to say, and building links, building connections between all of your pages, semantically internally linking, being a real company, being authoritative, and if you do those things, you tend to do well in SG.
So you don't really have to change your strategies just because of SGE, right?
Well, if you read the documentation that Google put out themselves, they do say that the SGE results are basically taken from the top ranking search results. So there might be exceptions to that, of course, but from what I have seen, is that is the case.
Got it. And what about EE80 or EET? This is basically a guideline of Google how they rank certain contents, right?
Sorry, can you repeat that question?
Yeah, the it's like an acronym EE80. I'm not
Oh
sure,
yeah, okay.
right? I always see it in writing. I never had to say it so far.
Yeah, no worries. So EEAT, yeah, essentially Google. This is I have a take on this essentially. So, um, if you maybe you guys remember, but in 2018, Google released something called the Medic update, and this was an update that was very heavy-handed and hurt a lot of sites, but also the recovery was generally pretty easy, because they looked at things like, does the author have credentials, or like very specific on-page kind of stuff, right? And if you didn't have these like on-page signals, then you would have been demoted after the Medic update. But to me, the Medic update was really just a way for Google to force the content to look more authoritative on the surface. But I think now that everybody has done that because of how Google handled it, they're going to continue to do that. But I don't think that's what's actually helping you rank, or giving you EEAT points, if you want to call it that, which I don't think really exists. But What is more important is not so much the things that you can change on your page that anyone can essentially fake. Call someone a doctor or put a degree or whatever that doesn't exist. What is much harder to uh, uh, create are the backlinks that will for sure give you an indication that you're authoritative. If I'm the U.S. government, or I'm a prominent health website like Mayo Clinic or whatever, I'm not going to link to just anybody, right? So when you get a link from those more authoritative type sources, that's, I think, where the A in EEAT comes in. And I think, honestly, the A in EEAT is the most important part.
Got it. So this basically means in layman's terms that quality backlinks are more important than the credentials of who is writing the article in a way.
Yeah, I think the credentials are important for a user to trust once they get on the page, but I don't think those credentials are actually helping the page rank.
And how do you go about like building quality backlinks? What it,
For us, yeah, for us, we usually do like three-way link exchanges are probably one of the most the best way to get like super high authority backlinks. I do have a note about that, and then what we also do is digital PR. So we create stories around our client's brand or like things that are happening in the client's industry, and we will essentially try to capture the interest of journalists to use what we've talked about and then cite us as the source for that. And then like just any guest posting that we can do, like networking within the industry, um, you know, leveraging the connections that the client or the business or whoever the site has already, trying to get those links from their broader network, essentially. And then, of course, like you can create like studies, you can create pages that are talking about like the statistics and stuff like that to naturally attract backlinks. So I think that the more, obviously your strategies have to be efficient. They can't spend 6 months on a report and hope that it gets a million backlinks. But as long as you can allocate some time and resources and try a variety of methods, I think that's kind of the way that we've had success with
what's the ratio of quality to quantity? So if you wanna rank the specific article or specific long tail keyword, would you wanna have more lower quality backlinks or like fewer higher quality ones?
it. Yeah, I think there's always the it depends answer, but um, for longer tail keywords, um, I kind of gave some indication that longer tail keywords, targeting them on their own in an article, might be on the way out. But I generally, what I would say, historically, is the longer tail the keyword, um, the the fewer backlinks that it's going to require. But what I always suggest is it should always be, that your decision to build backlinks should always be done like on a case by case basis. You need to actually Google the keywords that you're trying to rank for, use tools like Ahrefs to check out how many backlinks this specific page has going to it, how many backlinks the website has going to it, what kind of internal links are those pages receiving, and then kind of strategizing your game plan from there.
You actually also suggested Surfer SEO previously in the conversation, right?
Yeah, server guys are great. Yeah.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, Surfer is basically like a suite of tools, but one of the features that it has, and it's really making my job easier whenever I'm writing an article, is like a content editor that helps you create like content that has the sufficient keywords in it and the proper length and the proper headings. So if you can check out Surfer SEO and Ahrefs, because both of them are great tools for SEO. Now, we have talked about AI briefly. It's more from the side of like Google and how these like search engines use that AI in the products. But what do you think about using AI for content creation?
Personally, I feel like if you actually want to, let's go back to the best mortgage rates kind of article, right? And like you collect all these. Sorry, I'm a baseball fan. You collect all these great topics, right? One of the things I think Google can't detect AI content on a page level. Like it can't look at one page versus a human written page and say this is AI. But what it could do is look at like the entities that are covered in each article, and how those entities differ from the other ranking articles, and how like how is the article just trying to answer only when does the Fed meet again, or is that article talking about the best time to get a mortgage, and then has like really great points, mentions when does the Fed meet again, but part of a larger article, right? So I think it's hard for AI to assemble like a very like comprehensive and interesting post that has lots of interesting perspectives and tips in it and answers a multitude of search queries versus a very singular myopic article about when does the Fed meet again. So Eric Lantris from onpage.ai had a very interesting analysis of the recent March update, where he thinks that these one single type answer blog posts are in Google's crosshairs as a way to combat AI content. And I think it's a fairly logical argument. And I'm a big fan of, making sure that you follow logic in all aspects of SEO. And that also extends to, how is Google efficiently going to solve their issues, like, just from a engineering point of view. And basically the way that I look at this is with AI content, the way that I would prefer to use it is for research, is for giving me ideas, but not to just strictly write a piece of content. I also think if you look at it logically, is that if Google lets AI run amok and dominate 95% of search results, it's the end of.
Yeah, yeah, it makes sense. Actually, my understanding is similar, but maybe I have a little bit of like different take on it. So, like apparently Google doesn't penalize AI articles per se, but they do penalize articles that are like spammy, or what you said, that these like two sentence articles that when the Fed is meeting, which are not really informative and don't provide value. So it's maybe less about like AI written content and more about like offering like genuine value to your readers.
Yeah, exactly. Offering your readers something that wasn't offered on every other blog, right? Because that is essentially the premise of LLMs, is to offer the most predictable next word. So that's never going to give you the kind of interesting insights that a human would give you, or even what Google would give you if you use that interrogative strategy that I posted. So I think some common sense has to prevail here. But like the anytime something is too easy, it gets exploited by more and more people every day, and eventually it just gets thrown by the wayside. So I think that if I were Google, looking at the different threats that are coming up, I'm going to make every effort to reward people who are actually putting in real effort into creating great content and trying my best to at least demote AI content. I'm not saying they can do it, but that's what I would try to do.
Got it. Thank you. Um, Great. I have another question, which is a little bit off topic, but I'm also really interested in it because I feel like I know some of the SEO fundamentals, but I'm no way an expert. So, what would you suggest to someone who is just, like getting to know SEO or just starting to experiment with creating content? How should they proceed with like optimizing it for search results?
Yeah, I think my number one piece of advice to anybody getting into SEO is learn how to use Ahrefs. Like that's my tool of choice. And start with actually Googling the keywords that you want to rank for, or just pick something that you're interested in, right? So maybe for me that would be like learning guitar or playing, rock music on guitar or something like that, and just try to build a website around that. But where you should start is essentially looking at Google more often than you look at any other tool. But then, once you are familiar with going to every kind of page that is ranking, understanding the format of the page, the intent of the page, looking at things like what are the backlinks to that page, what is the other content on the website that is related to that page, and then going into a tool like Ahrefs to understand for each of those websites that's ranking, what are the top pages on their website, what are the top keywords on their website, what kind of backlinks do those pages have, and just kind of trying to give yourself and get an understanding of the general levers that are allowing those different pages to rank for the keywords that you're targeting.
This is basically like reverse engineering
Yeah.
how as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It almost when you're explaining, it almost sounds like like a brain teaser, like an exercise in logic when you are like going step by step and trying to pick apart something to understand it and then apply it in your own strategies.
Yeah. So I think that the reverse engineering piece is a huge and a hugely valuable skill that I encourage everybody to really practice. And even if you don't have Ahrefs, just looking at the actual pages, learning how to use search operators, right? So if I want to rank for car insurance, I can find Geico car insurance, website page. Then I can search for site:geico.com space car insurance, and now I can see all the different other pages they have on car insurance.
Yeah.
So yeah, learning how to do that reverse engineering, hugely important. And it's the one skill that can teach you the most. Don't sit there reading like a million blogs. Even reading SEO Notebook at a beginner level might even not be enough for you to essentially create a comprehensive plan. But once you understand the mechanics behind things, then you can start to say, these are the resources I have around me. These are the different levers that's working for this site that I can replicate for my own.
Great advice. I have one last question of my own. which is in regards to this latest Google update, the March core update, if I'm not mistaken. I know that, and you also mentioned this, that a lot of like different sites suffered because of that, because a lot of content went down in ranking, and some of these sites are not getting as many clicks and impressions anymore. So, what is your strategy for like navigating these like ever-changing like waters? How do you cope with like a sudden change in the algorithm that tanks some of your articles?
Yeah, it's sudden change. It could be a sudden change in the algorithm. It could be, different search features that are coming up. It could be super authoritative sites like Forbes.com's just deciding to write about what you're writing about and outranking you. So when you suffer a traffic drop, you need to get to the bottom of what it actually is, and is it actually recoverable? Because sometimes it might not be. So these are kind of the things you have to accept with SEO. And I would also say that don't, it's easy to say it after the fact, but as you're planning what type of website you're going to build, what type of pages you're going to write about, whatever, all the other things, um, try to avoid niches that are going to give you those types of problems. But once you the best thing that you can do if you get hit, just on a very practical level, is go to Google Search Console, try to compare like last 7 days to previous 7 days, or last 28 days to previous 28 days, and look at what keywords actually dropped. Then go to the search results and see what happened. And if you also can uh, track those keywords in a tool like keyword.com, where you're actually taking snapshots of the SERP so you can see how it looks, you can actually see in front of your own eyes how the SERP looked 28 days ago versus how it looked today. And then you can, get to, and you can also use Ahrefs to see the SERP position history. Similarly, you just won't see the actual snapshot.
Great, great advice. Thank you very much, Steve. I have one question from Sam, who is asking, do you have any tips on getting new pages indexed quickly?
Sure. So if you have a site that already talks about your topic a lot, make sure that the new content that you're publishing is topical, and it's going to get a better chance of getting indexed. Also, internally linking to a page will increase its likelihood of getting indexed. The more unique the more unique the content is, the more higher chances of indexation are. But if you're absolutely stuck, you could try a service like Index Me Now. We've had decent success with that. It's not going to work 100% of the time, but it can also work. And then one really quick hack version is if you make a QR code of your URL and then take a picture of it with like 10 different phones, it can also trigger indexation, because the QR code runs through a Google API, and Google has eyes on that traffic.
That's super cool. I never would have thought about that. And this is the kind of advice that people can expect on the SEO notebook, right?
Yeah.
Amazing. So if you haven't done yet, please do subscribe to the SEO notebook. And I think this is the end of our episode. So thank you very much, Steve, for being here today. Thank you, everyone who joined us live. And if you, we will send you the recording next week, along with some bonus resources provided by us and Steve's team. So definitely be on the lookout for that. And have a great weekend. It's Friday.
All right. Thank you for having me.